Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got, I'm not going to call it an unboxing or a review. It's kind of a little bit of both. We're going to do one and then do the other, basically. And what we have is something we need, and that is this iDsonix desktop PCIe expansion card. Pretty clear on the box. We've got a fairly straightforward card, one USB-C port, one SATA port. This was actually the cheapest USB 20 gig card I could find on Amazon, which should make this all sorts of extra fun, assuming it works. Let's see, this is a PE20-1C. So this was $42.99, and then there was a 10% off coupon. There's a couple that are a little bit more than this, a couple from Ricoh, Silverstone, and a few others, even a few that have multiple ports. However, I just need the one port for testing USB-C devices. So we got this one, pretty straightforward on the box. Desktop PCIe 20 gig expansion card, model number, dimensions, color, supports 4x, 8x, or 16x, has one USB 3.2C by 1, has one USB 3.2, rated for 20 gigs a second. So let's see what we get in the box, which sounds like a lot more than I expected. So we get little warranty card, QR code for iDsonix website. If you post a review, send it to us, service at iDsonix. Little bitty manual that is in English and Chinese. Basically the same stuff. Turn the computer off, plug it into a slot on the motherboard, connect a 15-pin SATA power. Please be sure, guys, this is just gibberish. To ensure that you can better use this product, please confirm the version of PCIe by 4 by 8 and 16 on the motherboard are 3.0, 2.0, 1.0 at least. That's all the PCIe revisions prior to 4 and 5. Quick math, this is a PCIe 4X device. A 3.0 lane, if memory serves, can transfer about 5 gigs. So, in fact, you know what, let me just look it up, make sure that I'm right there. No, 3.0 is 8 gigatransfers per second, 2.0 is 5 gigatransfers per second. Okay, so this should theoretically run at full speed on a 2.0 by 4 slot. However, there's going to be a little overhead, and I think this is actually a 3.0 device, so you're going to get your best results on a 3.0 slot. PCIe 1.1, don't even bother. Okay, so we get a low profile bracket, and that's metal. 2 case screws. I think I'm only supposed to get one, but they included a pair. The card itself, once again, metal bracket, and this is, I think this is a reference design. I've seen it float around a few times, and we got a little screwdriver. So we've got on here an ASM 3242, which is a standard AS media chip, fairly well supported by Windows. Should work under Mac OS as well. However, I don't believe Mac OS officially supports USB-C 20 gig. It may operate at 10 gig instead. And yeah, and part of what gives away that this is a reference design, other than I think I've seen this PCB before, is we have a lot of what look like test points all over the place that just don't make a ton of sense to have on a production card. However, for something as simple as this, a USB controller, you know, AS Media is going to have a PCB that they give to companies as a reference design. And the cost of customizing your PCB to cut out some of these test points versus just building it as is might not work out. I mean, you'd have to reevaluate the whole design, whereas this one should just work if you build it the way they tell you to. And then you have to make a PCB that's just yours. If this is a reference one, you may be able to get it cheaper. You may be able to say, hey, I need 10,000 of these and get it a lot quicker than, oh, here's a new design that you've never made before. I need 10,000 of them. Now, a larger vendor than iDsonix, someone like Ricoh or Silverstone or Ablecon or StarTech, is likely going to have their own designs on this. And that's where we've seen some of the vendors with cards that have 2 USB-Cs and 3 USB Type A's that also use this AS Media chip and may or may not have a PLX chip on board for a second USB controller. For what we're doing here, which is that we're going to benchmark that Kingston drive with this, assuming it works as intended, I don't need any of that. The reference design is fine. The AS Media design is, your AS Media chip is going to be what all of those use anyway. So, assuming that it's a genuine AS Media chip, which I don't have any reason to think it wouldn't, it wasn't dramatically cheaper than any of the others. It just happens to be the cheapest. And I think for that, I get a couple of weird items in the manual. But overall, it looks to be well planned. I mean, I get a pair of PCIe brackets. I wish they didn't have the vendor name on them. I understand why they do. It's branding. But that kind of sucks. Alright, so we are going to cut here and then get into the part where I said we're actually going to technically review this. We're not going to do the full benchmark suite on that Kingston card, but I am at least going to grab it and plug it in. I'm going to put the test bench back up. I got to grab a monitor and then that little SSD, and then we'll be off to the races. And assuming that this works, this will be what gets featured in a longer video just about that SSD. Alright, so step one's fairly simple. Now on our motherboard, we have two 16X slots, and we're just going to check how they're wired really quick. Alright, so it says 2 PCIe 16X slots, PCIe 1, PCIe 4, single at Gen 4x6, dual at Gen 4x16, Gen 3x4. Which is what I wanted. Gen 3x4. So this should just slot in like that. And then it came with screws and a screwdriver that I've already managed to misplace. Oh, there it is. And the reason I'm putting it in the bottom slot specifically is because on the odd chance that I do install a GPU, I don't want to pull this out. I want to put this in and be done. Now the other part, and this is one of those things I wish I didn't have to do, and some of the other USB 20 gig cards did not require this. So I just want to be clear, this is a limitation of this card specifically, is that it needs additional SATA power. So let's go ahead and just pick one of my SATA power slots and then run that up to right there. Alright, so physical install, real easy. Part of it's because we're on a test bench case. One of these days I need to get some longer power cables. And this whole lot. Maybe I'll get some of the nicer braided ones I've seen. If anybody wants to see us, I guess, I don't know, look at some power cables, let me know, and let me know in the comments below what ones you want to see. There we go. Grab a keyboard while it's booting. Our Logitech K600 TV, and that is a good sign. Out of the gate, there's a red LED lit up on the iDsonix. Now, yep, and there we go. We're signing in. Quick refresher. This is a Kingston portable SSD XS2000, and we're actually going to do a couple of different things really quick here. That's an A to C. I've got a Thunderbolt 3 cable that came with an OWC device. I want to see if that works. I have the inbox cable that came with the XS2000. And then I've just got a generic C to C somewhere here that came with God knows what. Fire up OBS. And I don't even have the Wi-Fi enabled right now, so this will be exciting. We'll use Crystal Disk Mark 8. That's the latest, greatest. Here we go. Plug it in. Plug it into the iDsonix card. You know, I probably should have... Alright, that detected, but Crystal Disk Mark needs started while it's connected. And let's see what Crystal Disk Info tells us. SATA 300, SATA 600, UASP. That's weird. Alright, so detection worked right away. The iDsonix was plug and pray and just out of the box. Windows 10, and there it goes at 20 gigs per second read, isn't even connected to the internet. So these are inbox drivers in Windows 10 as of 21H1 and probably 20H2 as well. Okay, so that's working. I want to test the other cables, but as long as I'm hitting the speeds this promises on the website, up to 2,000 megs read, up to 2,000 megs write, which so far we are. And we hit 2070 read, so we're actually a little bit past that. I have no issue using this particular controller for benchmarking purposes, and let's just see how toasty that is. Oh, not bad. It's warm to the touch. Actually, that's getting a lot toastier. Well, this is running. I want to see how hot that AS Media controller is getting. All right, studio temp is 19 Celsius, and this is not going to be... Oop. Fun fact, if you plug your thermocouple in upside down, the temperature starts to go down. Okay. 30, 32, 38, 40, man. We seem to be stabilizing at like 42 degrees Celsius. Okay, 1857 megs right, and our XS2000 just crossed 61 degrees Celsius per Crystal Disk Info. That is kind of disappointing. I would have expected to see better thermals 44 Celsius for native controller. And what I mean by that is that the XS2000 is no longer using a NVMe controller and then a USB to NVMe bridge like other drives like our Carbon X will. And therefore, there's just less things to cool and there's less signal conversion going on. However, it appears to be that in doing so, this particular enclosure, which is not warm to the touch, thankfully, but is plastic. There's no airflow. There's no heat dissipation. Yeah, we seem to have stalled at about 45 Celsius on the controller. Means that if I wanted to use this for, say, an external SSD running a couple of VMs and a server that I need the ability to pack up and go, well, this probably wouldn't be my first choice, because it's going to run hot if there's large loads, and that's going to lead to potentially inconsistent performance or drop-offs in performance when it thermal throttles. Now that's normally, and I'm not going to beat Kingston up too much here, not a big deal. I mean, the benchmark finish, it's already dropped back down to 54 Celsius. So it's an external SSD. I'm not going to expect the same kind of extended performance I would out of an internal unit, but I'm still going to benchmark it for it, because there are people who might take something like, we'll grab one actually, I don't have the Byte 4, but might take something like a Byte 4, we'll use my Byte 3 as a stand-in, and stack up a couple of VMs, and or maybe just make it a file server, and take something like this and just go like that and glue it all together, or VHB it onto the top there, and this is it. I can now take my file server to trade shows, or it's running a small VM stack that I take with me. Take your pick there for your edge case. So there are people who are going to want extended performance in external SSDs, and that's why I'm going to benchmark it for it still. Now what I want to see is how fussy the cabling is. So this is a Thunderbolt 3 cable. This came in an OWC Thunderbolt 3 SSD that we reviewed. And we're going to open up Crystal Disk Mark again and see if the Thunderbolt cable runs at 10 or 20 gigs a second. I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because the Thunderbolt 3 controllers, at least, don't talk USB-C 20 gig. But apparently the Thunderbolt 3 cable does. In fact, 207274, I think that's slightly faster than the included cable, but that's still within variance between benchmarks runs. So we're going to let it run just so I have a full set of data, and then we're going to try what I think is a USB-C 10 gig or at least 5 gig cable, but I don't know. It just says USB 3.1 Type-C cable from BizLink Technology. No idea where I got it or what it might have come in. Alright, so that finished. Honestly, those results look the same. I'll make sure to compare them afterwards in OBS just to double check. But it would appear that a Thunderbolt 3 cable is perfectly fine. And oh, you are starting to get toasty. I'm going to open up Crystal Disk Info and take a look. Okay, random USB-C cable that was in my studio. Came with God knows what. Might not even be a 10 gig cable or a 5 gig cable. I've got a couple that are just, holy shit. Alrighty then. So it would seem that 3.2 Gen 2 isn't super picky about the cables. Now, I do have a couple that I don't think will work, and I'm going to say that if you intend to rely on it for any extended period of time, you're going to want to use a high-quality cable. Now, whether that means the one that came in it that was clearly validated for 3.2 Gen 2 operation, one that says 3.2 Gen 2, or a Thunderbolt 3 cable, that's going to be up to you, your budget, and your application. If you're doing something weird, 65 Celsius, goddamn. Like I talked about server stuff with it earlier today, or earlier in the video, you're probably going to lean towards something a little higher end than if you want a longer cable for dumping videos off it, or using it as a really fast flash drive. Because, I mean, this is fine to include with the drive, but this is a 10-inch cable and would not let me, like, set it somewhere stable if I plugged it into the back of my tower. Now, granted, I only have a USB 3.1 Gen 1 card in there right now, which is a 10 gig device. However, if I did have a Gen 2 card like this iDsonix and a conventional desktop, not on my bench here, I might want to put it somewhere a little more or less precarious. Or maybe I just want a cable that reaches up to my desk instead of having to fiddle around behind the tower. But I'm not relying on it for anything mission critical, so why blow the money on a fancy Thunderbolt cable? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. This video is about the iDsonix USB 3 Gen 2 by 2 20 gig controller, and it works. It seems to be solid. I don't really have anything to comment on it one way or another. The controller chip got a little toasty. It's 45. It's 45 Celsius. It's uncomfortable to touch, but not so warm that in a case with normal airflow or an open bench like this, I would say it's an issue. Would I feel better about it if they had glued an itty-bitty heatsink to it? Always. I mean, just always I would have felt better with a heatsink, whether or not it got this hot. But, 71 Celsius. How is that SSD at 71 Celsius? Anyway. So, TLDW, the iDsonix controller does what it says on the box. The packaging's a little weird, and I've never dealt with iDsonix for warranty support, which is limited to, I don't know. I don't actually recall seeing the warranty period. Oh, 1 year. Now, they're not exactly a no-name company. They're just not the most recognized ever. We've actually reviewed iDsonix products in the past. Although I do want to be clear, I purchased this one. I have not been able to get a hold of their PR since like 2018. So I couldn't have asked for this if I wanted. All right, with that all said, $40 USB 20 gig card. If you need it, you need it. If not, you probably want more ports than one 20 gig port. I'd like to thank anyone who helps support Pocketables, either via Patreon or by using our Amazon affiliate links. It's support like that that helps buy bits and pieces like this so that we can review products. I'd like to thank Alextrix for providing our opening and closing themes. And finally, thank you for watching.